what exactly is someone in Gen Z are expecting from us as a brand or even just a subscriber versus a millennial?
I actually think that millennials and Gen Z are two sides of the same coin. So for millennials, they really prioritize and value and expect consistency. Gen Z are really starting to expect variety. So I think brands can really start to think about how not only to provide a consistent experience, but also build in moments of delight.
Today, you're here with two hosts, myself, Ron, who is co-founder and CEO of a brand called Obvi, and Jen, who is SVP of Marketing at Recharge. Jen, tell the viewers a little bit about Tomorrow Brand and what we're trying to accomplish here.
Yeah. So first, I want to say this is super surreal because when I joined Recharge about 9 months ago, Chew on This was the first podcast everyone recommended, I listened to. So I devoured that content. But being a Tomorrow brand is thinking about the long term for brands. I think a lot of brands think about just acquisition today, getting people in the funnel today, and we're really thinking about how to push brands into a healthier spot from a business perspective, but also a healthier spot on how to make sure that their products are embedded in the daily lives of their consumers, how they think about routines, how they think about product adoption today and tomorrow.
It's a great point. I think one of the biggest pieces that we go in, whether you're building a brand or you're working at a brand or you're conceptualizing starting a brand, I think one of the things that we all think about is once you make the first purchase, right? Oh, well, now how do I get that person to buy again, right? And if part of like that theory can actually just go away from the fact that you just build a really good product that already thinks about and solves for that from the get-go, I think that's what we're trying to inspire, which is obviously whether you have an existing business or thinking of starting a business, the biggest piece is how you're thinking about that part of whether subscription versus one-time purchase or how you can actually embed that into your product to where I can't live without this product or I absolutely need this product. And I think we're excited to break that down.
I had just spoken to a founder a couple of weeks ago, and they had just gotten off this round of investor calls. And the number one question they were asked was, who was your ideal customer profile? And it's interesting about that question because what they're actually getting at is what is your TAM? Yeah. And how long is that TAM going to be around?
Great point.
Right? And that's what investors really want to know. They want to know how high your ceiling is, but like they also want to know how low your floor is. So if you're like a one-time wallet purchase, like that may not be purchased again and again and embedded in my daily routine. Like there's some concern there as we think about acquisition costs right now. So they're really trying to target the brands that are thinking about this long-term routine of their consumer and what their brand promise is supposed to fulfill. So those are the kinds of things that we're going to talk about in this series.
That's awesome. So there's a lot that we have on the agenda, a lot of different topics that we're going to go into, but more importantly, I think there's something that we're going to be sharing at the end, which you're super excited about. I'm shocked that you guys are doing this, but maybe you want to give a little hint so people can stay tuned till the end.
Okay, we're going to do just a little hint. And I'm so sorry. You're like, this woman is going to make me listen to 45 minutes of a podcast before she's going to drop the surprise. Yes, I am. So the surprise that we'll announce at the end, the hint is we are giving away the biggest prize in e-commerce history.
It's insane.
It's insane.
Yeah, I don't even know how to explain it without giving it away, but it's going to be insane.
It's going to be insane. So we're so excited.
Stay tuned till the end because it's actually something that you can take a part in, which is the really, really exciting part. So stay tuned. Otherwise, I'm going to actually end up giving it away. There's a reason why Tomorrow Brand is powered by Recharge. Okay, we're here to talk about the one piece that is super important for every business, especially going into tomorrow, but something that still feels like it's not prioritized, right? Something that can be important, sometimes it just doesn't get prioritized, still ends up at the bottom of the totem pole. And I think that is this world of subscriptions and recurring business and whichever way you label it, right? Non-one-time purchases. Tell us a little bit more from your lens, being at the helm of Recharge and what you get to see from brands. How important is subscription, and why do businesses not only need to prioritize, not only make it important, but prioritize it a little bit more, especially if they want to be a tomorrow brand?
So what we're seeing from kind of consumer behavior is that in order to be a brand of tomorrow, in order to be purchased today and tomorrow, you have to sit at the intersection of convenience and value. And I think a lot of subscription programs are only looking at convenience. They're only looking at 15% off, subscribe and save. Oh, I don't have to worry about reordering next month. It'll just come. Whereas I think we're starting to really see the brands that win in subscriptions are thinking about the entire subscription lifecycle and how that can provide value from start to finish and make you feel kind of part of a brand, part of a community. And so when we think about subscriptions, it's like, yes, you are driving more. I mean, we all love predictable revenue. Right. Your investors, for damn sure, love predictable revenue. You've got higher LTV with your subscribers. And then we're seeing the brands that do very well build their entire business around their subscribers. Yes. Like what you learn from your subscribers, like I know Obvi does this very well. Yep. What you learn from your most loyal subscribers kind of powers the rest of your marketing messaging and how you think about your ICP and how you think about what your retail strategy should be. We even had an example. We spoke to this brand recently that I think 10% of their revenue was powered by subscriptions or came from subscriptions. But then we showed them the difference between LTV from one time to subscribers. And their subscribers had a 7 times LTV, which is wild because then I'm like, if you could just budge that 10% of your subscription revenue by just a couple of percents, like that is an incredible lift in your business. One example, and I just want to make sure I get it right, is Oats Overnight. Oats Overnight is a recharge merchant, and they're one of my favorite brands as a consumer because it's like, that's perfect. As a busy mom, I'm like, I love Oats Overnight.
Shout out to Brian.
Shout out, yes. They're so good, and their flavors. Anyway. They've been with us for about 7 years, which yes, Recharge has been around for a very long time. And their share of revenue and subscriptions increased from 27% to 92% while they've been on Recharge. And their net revenue is up 350% from 2021. So just to see the lift when you start to make sure that the majority of your business is coming from subscriptions is incredible.
Yeah. I have a question for you based on it because I feel like we get into these talks at different founder dinners or events and just talking to other founders and operators. And one thing that I think a lot of people always get to, and I'd love to get your point of view on it, is like, it's just more expensive to acquire a subscriber, right? And I think there is truth to that, but then there's also like a lot of back end false claims to that because it's like, maybe more expensive on the surface, but there's so much more you can potentially gain out of it. But how do you guys talk about that to brands or operators that are thinking about it that way, which is like, I would love to build a subscription business, but it's just too expensive.
Yeah. I think when we think about conversion, retention, and growth for your subscribers, I think we're going to just lean into like, it's worth the investment. Yeah. It's worth the investment. Like once you sort of get somebody in that funnel and get to order, 4 or 5, it's so much easier for you to kind of pinpoint like, okay, I'm losing subscribers at like order 4. Let's give them XYZ to make sure we retain them. Like it's just easier within your, marketing and customer experience play. When it comes to acquisition, I think where we're landing is that it's really dynamic because it's kind of like, you have to balance subscription acquisition with healthy profit margins. Yep. And I think that's what we're kind of seeing as well is like, figure out what the metrics are that matter for your business. Yep. And let's make sure that plays well. Like I think something with cancellation prevention, for example, with Recharge, we can do a bigger discount. You can A/B test different discounts on cancellation prevention. If someone cancels and fills out the survey and you're like, I want to give them 20% because they've spent a lot with us, or I want to give them 15 because they haven't spent that much on us. And you could do that reversed or whatever. But what we're seeing are some brands doing a larger discount on maybe an annual subscription, right? Is really kind of balancing fiscally where you need to land from a profit margin perspective and still making sure that that's a dynamic piece in your subscription strategy.
That's a great point. I think just to wrap on that point too, it's like you touched on such a good point, which is like, if somebody is about to, let's say, even churn or not be a customer, but they've been a customer for a few cycles of subscription, it's much easier to keep them on and remarket to them, right? Than going and acquiring a completely new customer similar to that customer. That is far more expensive, timely, and also less predictable on how they're going to behave. And it's kind of the same concept of when you're doing top of funnel is much harder than bottom of funnel remarketing because it's all the variables are involved there, right? And so I think it's a great point on just like, it's not just the investment up front, but even after, when they are trying to maybe not be a customer, there's so many things you can do there, which is really powerful.
Well, when we first met in December, you kind of talked about how AOV and LTV kind of compete sometimes because you're just trying to get higher AOV in the cart while also trying to balance subscriptions. And that's kind of also what Recharge is trying to do, is how do we make sure that we can optimize all the areas for you to drive to subscription? Because cool. I think at the end of the day, LTV wins.
Yeah, 100%. I love that topic. And I think the one piece that we've started to also become a little bit more mindful of is it's not just an AOV game, because I think we're all trained like that. Oh, CAC went up, cool, just get your AOV up, or just get your conversion rate up on your landing page. And it's like you fall into letting your brand becoming just metric led, and rather than just understanding, like, you also have the importance of building a brand and a product that people want and people want to stay on with and use, and it's creating results. You're not just playing this math game online, which is, it's tough sometimes as a marketer. You're just so deep into that.
We'll talk about tactics a little bit later, but I just want to bring up one. Barefaced is a merchant of Recharge, and one of my favorites. I love Barefaced. And how I think they think about it is sort of, what is their tip of the spear product? What is their hero product? Theirs are the toning pads. Yeah. If anyone is interested, the toning pads, the toning pads are chef's kiss. Like, just buy the toning pads. Trust me, everyone, buy the toning pads. But what's interesting is that they're thinking about conversion on the toning pads and spending ad dollars on the toning pads, because once I'm in there for 3 orders, they then hit me with their very vast product catalog. They have a lot of SKUs, and they can kind of think of, okay, what's next in there? A vitamin C. What's next in there? A night serum. What's next in there? A moisturizer. And so it's not necessarily an and, or it's sort of like a when discussion, right? Is get somebody in a subscription, get them, loyal and repeating purchase with you, and then start to figure out how best to product diversify within that, right? How to eat up more pieces of their skincare routine.
No, that's a great anecdote. And you touched on routine. And I think it's, and I know you have a lot of great examples of what it takes to build that routine and consider routine when you're building your brand. So you touched on it a little bit right there, which is routine. And routine is such a core pillar to how you think of product, how you think about your customer, how you think about the fact that they're going to stay on with your product. What does routine mean to you in this ecosystem of subscription and being a tomorrow brand?
When I first joined Recharge, I had kind of a moment. I was talking to our CEO, Shah, who's very much a product guy. He's my favorite person to talk to, because he just is constantly thinking about, like, what are we building next? Yeah. But I sat down with him and I was like, we don't power subscriptions. We power routines. That's really what Recharge does, is we're powering routines. And so,
great way to put it.
For me, we laugh all the time that I am the ideal customer profile for Obvi, for all of these brands. It doesn't take much to acquire me as a customer. But the question, I think, is sort of like, will that be part of my routine? And so for me, I'm an elder millennial. I'm starting to age. I care about my skin. I'm a busy working mom. And so my routine is so important to me. I have very limited time, which I know you do too. And so how do we make sure that we get sort of all of the lift out of our day all as conveniently and easily as possible? And so this concept of routine is really starting to take over, especially when you start thinking about today's consumer. Yeah. So when we think about kind of where we're at as a society, the 40-year-old millennial, I'm not 40 yet, but like the 40-year-old millennial and the 24-year-old Gen Z are in charge. They're in charge right now. Millennials they're the largest generation. They represent the biggest percentage of the country's workforce, and they hold the most purchasing power. So if you think about me as an elder millennial, I am busy, I am bougie, and I hold purchasing power for my household. And I've got a lot to spend. And so we really think about what are we learning from today's consumer to pivot our entire brand strategy around.
No, the elements you just described of how you even know yourself. I think the one big part of that is, like, we're also like the most self-aware set of customers that have, like, come into this ecosystem. which is like, we'll pay for convenience, we'll pay to maintain routine, we'll pay the price to basically keep things predictable, because there's enough unpredictability in so many other parts of life. Yeah. And so I think that is like one piece that you just touched on, which is how to like actually think about routine. It's deeper than just like, oh yeah, this is a product you just take every day, but think about the why. Yeah. Why are you taking this every day? Or why are you using the shampoo every day? Or why are you, taking the supplement, or, utilizing whatever skincare routine you have? And I think so much of it is like, it's not just because it's easy and convenient, but it's also because like you're too busy to think about too many other elements. And I think it's a great way to look at it.
I'm curious, what's sort of like one non-negotiable in your routine? Like, you're a founder, you're a CEO, you're a dad, you're a husband, you do so many different things, you wear so many different hats.
Yeah, I think there's a few like non-negotiables. So I think number one is when I have 2 products by my bed, because I'm not like a good eater. I'm not a healthy eater.
You're going to say a non-healthy eater.
I'm on like a non-healthy eater. And I'm like super self-aware. But I take 2 products, which is Seed.
Love Seed.
Like, I love Seed. I think I've been on it for like 4 years.
Yeah, same.
And like
4 years.
It's incredible.
My LTV is very high.
Yeah, me too. Like, and I've never even tried to like get off of it. And I don't even know at this point if it just works so well that I don't notice anything, or that it just, I don't remember the moments when I didn't have it. So it's like, it's perfect. And then Ritual, which is like a multivitamin, and it's just by my bed. And it's like, before I'll even like fully get off my bed, that is like, I'm taking that right there. Cause on an empty stomach, that's like one part of the routine. And then like, I have to go to my closet from there and put on my Fitbit. Like, it is such a weird part of my routine. Cause it's like,
why is it in your closet?
It's charging.
Oh.
In my closet. I know. It's always charging. And it's like, I'm a big step counter, because like, I feel like I know if I just ate well, I can be as skinny as I want. I like to eat, so I'll walk a lot. So I do all my calls walking. I do everything like very walking related. And I try to hit 15 to 20,000 steps a day.
Damn.
And like, so for me, that's like very routine. And then from there, the rest of the day just feels like anything can hit me. And I feel like if I walk out of my bedroom door and those 3 things are there, done, I feel like I can take on a lot. But it's so critical, because it's been years now of following that routine. What about you?
I mean, one of my favorite quotes is, "Show me your routine and I'll show you your life."
Yep.
Routines really are the invisible scaffolding that set you up. Like, millennials and Gen Z, we have goals.
Yep.
We have things we want to accomplish in life. And so we have to have sort of this invisible scaffolding to kind of uphold our chaotic lives.
Yeah.
I love my skincare routine.
Yeah.
That's my non-negotiable. Like, and
Is it day and night?
It's day and night, although night I spend a little bit more time. Like, I actually like spend time like spreading it on my face. I gua sha, I face massage. Like, I just love.
Yeah.
One of my favorite podcasts is the Skinny Confidential podcast.
Yeah.
The TSC shop is on Recharge, but I think they're the perfect example of a routine-driven brand, because they want to plug into those moments. They want to plug into those moments that are just for me. So that's kind of what we're seeing. And why routines are so important. So if you'll let me, I want to kind of talk about millennials and Gen Z a little bit.
Definitely.
I think consumer behavior is so fascinating to me.
It is.
So what we're seeing across the board with this sort of rise of millennials and Gen Z is, in general, they are spending money to elevate their everyday life. If you think about where we're at right now, societal upheaval, financial goals, traditional markers of success are kind of out of reach for a lot of younger generations, like a 401k. Who is she, right? Like, how am I saving for a house?
Yeah.
Interest rates are crazy high. And so they're choosing to spend money on the things that elevate their everyday.
Wow.
And it's so important, I think, for brands to understand this, to understand really what's happening within their consumers' minds. So for millennials and Gen Z, let's talk about priorities first. Mm-hmm. So for millennials are now in our sandwich era. And also, we are considered middle-aged right now.
Wow, wonderful. That should set the tone for the rest of the episode.
Ron was like, immediately no. Immediately stop talking to me. Wow, wonderful.
Oh, we are middle-aged.
We are solidly middle-aged.
You're right.
But millennials are now in our sandwich era where we are just trying to get enough steps and water and protein in a day while also raising children, while also starting to take care of elderly parents.
Yeah.
So time is very important for us. Routine is very important. Gen Z, on the other hand, also, I think, face the same amount of like financial anxiety, and they support a lot of their parents and family as well. And pets is a big thing. A 2022 survey, I think, surveyed Gen Z or surveyed all the generations about how much they spend on pet care. Gen Z spends an average of $2,000 a year on pet care and pet goods. And it was more than any other generation. So like we're carrying responsibility.
Yeah.
And so we are dependent
yeah.
on routine at this point.
Wow. That's like, I mean, it's such a privilege to be able to be, first of all, on a series like this, because you guys come from the recharge element, right? Like thousands of brands, so much research that you get to like just learn and share. Cause like so much of what you're saying, it makes sense, but you don't think about it like that all the time. And especially as like a brand founder, just even this, like what you said about like Gen Z, it's true. It's almost like, we look at them as like, oh, they're like, you know, in a way, they're this generation that's going to have it easier and have TikTok to live off of and this and that. Like there's so many things. But then at the same time, there's an element of like so many of them have pets and so many of them have like these like dependencies that we as millennials actually didn't have until maybe we're 25, 26, you know? And it's like, it's a great point. It's just because it didn't fit our structure or our mold doesn't mean that they are not feeling some certain parts of it. So that's really cool.
We just hit 100 million subscribers, I think, in the spring.
Wow.
And that's been so fun.
Yeah.
That means like 60% of households in America have a recharge subscription.
That's crazy.
Which means that we know some shit. Like that is, I think, the most exciting part for me is like, how can we make sure and empower these brands with these insights of how they should be pivoting, not just their like subscription program, but like their entire product strategy and their marketing strategy. So again, that's kind of what we want to surface on this.
Yeah, no, 100 million, that's actually insanity.
I know. Wild.
That's crazy. So we're in this great divide of how we look at and understand Gen Z and millennials, right? But part of understanding is also having a little bit of empathy towards what their expectations are. Break that down a little bit, because you guys, again, have so many data points and relative understanding of like what exactly is someone in Gen Z are expecting from us as a brand or even just a subscriber versus a millennial.
So Gen Z, don't come for me, but I actually think that millennials and Gen Z are two sides of the same coin, is what we're starting to see in consumer behavior. So for millennials, they really prioritize and value and expect consistency. Yep. Like I think more so than any generation, we are brand loyal, which is like, I think we're probably the last generation to experience this. Gen Z are definitely not brand loyal. I mean, I'm kind of on the cusp. I've tried like 14 different sunscreens this year.
What's your favorite one?
So I got to a really great chemical sunscreen. It was K-Beauty. I think it was a brand called Numbuzin. But then my dermatologist said that chemical is not the way to go and that I should go to mineral. And so now I've got to do another 14.
There you go.
Maybe we'll do another episode just to recap on what I'm learning about sunscreen. The Ole Henriksen one is pretty good. That one came out of nowhere for me. It's a pretty good mineral. But millennials really are showing more brand loyalty than Gen Z, but still expect consistency, whereas Gen Z are really starting to expect variety. They want variety. They want more bang for their buck. They want to know that they're getting value out of their purchase. And they're also looking for things that are a little bit more niche. So I think this is fascinating because I think about, what's a good example of this? Toilet paper, right? I think for a millennial, I would purchase this for convenience. I would purchase this because I'm like, I don't want to think about this. I just want to have my toilet paper be nice when I get home.
Yeah.
That's kind of it. Whereas Gen Z, I think, are really starting to think about like, okay, well, what am I going to get by subscribing to this toilet paper? Am I going to get, fun scents for the bathroom? Am I going to get candles? Am I going to get fun packaging? So I think brands can really start to think about how not only to provide a consistent experience, but also build in moments of delight.
That's super interesting. It's like I was actually on a trip with my cousins, and a lot of them are Gen Z, and I remember talking to them about like just where they're shopping, even for like clothing and stuff. They were talking about like some of these companies like Shein and Temu and all that, and they were like, yeah, we like buy from there, and they didn't make price the reason. Although I think as a millennial, when I hear those companies, and maybe too, it's like, oh, it's cheap. Most of them who did shop there, they were like, yeah, I can get so many different things. But they're spending the same as they would at a Zara or any other clothing brand. So it wasn't about money.
Yeah.
It was about variety. So it's really interesting that you touched on that, because it's like, it makes so much sense.
Let's dissect this actually. So what we're seeing is a new level of economic value. We started in a goods and services economy, right? And then we faced commoditization. The internet was the greatest force of commoditization because you could instantly compare price to price. And so, brands no longer could differentiate by price. So they could only differentiate by going D2C and establishing a one-to-one relationship with their consumers and owning the end-to-end customer experience. But then what ended up happening were 1,400 different sunscreen brands came out, and we all moved to the attention economy. I think we're still in this, right? Like the amount of ad spend and the acquisition costs, right? And in my TikTok, my Instagram, my YouTube, it's just constantly like, here's the best beauty routine, here's the best skincare routine, try this. Like the attention economy now is being commoditized because there just isn't enough attention to go around. That's right. You can't compete. So now what we're seeing is the routine economy. This is the economic value, sort of like evolve or perish, like be part of somebody's routine. And for Gen Z, they want to have options because they have different things that they're doing. They want to be able to see of their purchases as part of like, okay, this is what I'm going to wear to go out. This is what I'm going to wear to go to a concert. Like understanding routines is sort of this next level of economic value.
100%. And like you look at some of the brands that like I know my millennial friends that are subscribed to are like the toothpaste, the skincare routines, the vitamins and whatnot. And I feel like, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I feel like Gen Z, the brands they're subscribing to, it's a little bit more niche. It's a little bit more, it's just like, it may not be the more everyday stuff. And it's interesting. Again, it's less about money and like, oh, more cost saving or not. It's more about just the difference in how they're viewing their lifestyle.
Yeah. Which is such a fun, I think, place for brands to be right now. You've got so many things to do. I know you're a founder, CEO, like you understand this.
100%.
But I think for now, it's time to hone in on what your subscription program looks like and what your product strategy, your marketing strategy are doing to power routines and to tap into Millennial and Gen Z behavior. So do you want to talk a little bit about kind of what we're seeing?
Yes, absolutely.
So I think winning in the routine economy has a couple things here. And we'll talk about subscriptions, we'll get a little more tactical, but I think the first thing that we're seeing, diversify your damn products. Like that is the best way to be part of somebody's routine. And it's fascinating because tech did this. I came from tech, I didn't come from e-commerce. Tech started as like vertical SaaS really started as sort of one thing for one type of customer, right? I worked for a dental company for a while there, and they did appointment reminders for dentists. And then they did payments and they did online forms. Because what is the best way to own a routine? It's to own the entire routine, right? And so we think about, like, I'll bring up Barefaced again because I'm such a fan, is they have such a diverse product line and they understand what their hero product is. I think another example that I absolutely love is Tushy. Remember the bidets?
Yeah.
Okay. I installed my own Tushy bidet, by the way. Shout out Ren at Tushy. Find awesome. A replenishable. Like if you don't necessarily have a routine replenishable product, figure out what else you can do.
Yeah.
And so rather than thinking about yourself as a bidet category, Tushy is now thinking about the bathroom category.
Yeah.
And so they're doing candles and they're doing toilet paper. Like it's such a fascinating way to be like, okay, I may not buy a bidet every year. I definitely am not buying a bidet every year. But I am thinking about them in the context of my routine because of how they've engaged me on the rest of their product catalog.
Yeah. No, you touched on such a good point, and I think that whole element of especially with your brand, like not every product or brand is built to subscribe to, right? And so it's like one, become aware of that, but also that doesn't give you the hall pass to say, well, I can't do a subscription business. And I think like that's one part that's super important. Like even for Obvi, the biggest example has been like when we started Obvi, it was like, all right, we're selling collagen powders. And then we started selling pills in terms of fat burners and stuff. And we realized like people who wanted to be on a routine were going towards the powders, but the pill products, like we were having a lot of trouble around getting people on a routine, because usually if you're looking to lose weight, it's usually for a very short-term goal. Like I have a wedding, I have a bachelorette, I have a bachelor party, I have this. What it's like you're very segmented. Because people who resort to weight loss pills, there's nothing wrong with it, are not also the people who are naturally just healthy and making better options. So they're looking for quicker solutions. So you see like there's a routine element in just the product format, right? Because it's like people who are coming in for it aren't necessarily buying for the right reasons. And I think one thing that we did there, which was like just changing the messaging, which was like, you may be buying it for this reason, but just to let you know, you're not going to see results unless you take it for 3 months. And then if you take it for 6 months, here's what you can really, here's the impact you can really see. And I think that really helped shift people into subscription for us, versus before it was like, oh, like, I don't know, I just don't think I can make it work. So great point on like looking at your brand and business and seeing what other elements you can add even within your wider category. But then there's also elements of like how you can message and brand the product a little bit to be able to cater to a subscription.
They really go hand in hand, is figuring out what your category is and what your product positioning then is. And so my favorite example of the category is Casper. Casper was a mattress company. And again, how many times are you buying a mattress in your lifetime? But then they brought into a sleep company. And so all of a sudden you're buying the glow lights and you're buying the eye masks, and you're buying the dog bed. Like it is such a great strategy. So really think about what your category is. And then from there, I think product positioning. So product positioning, that's where I come from. I'm from product marketing. And I think Obvi does this very, very well. I think companies really need to think about how to position their products, not just from what do we do, to what do we do for you.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example. Lululemon is something that I consume all the time. You go to their website, you go to their drop down, and it says leggings. Like you can search by what you're looking for, leggings, sports bras, tops, whatever. And this assumes I know what I'm looking for, which is good for Lulu because I do know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for leggings. But then you click on leggings and they all of a sudden have to tell you why their leggings are better than XYZ's leggings. They have to tell you why Lululemon's Align is better than like Set Active or, whatever. That puts a lot of onus on the buyer, on the purchaser. So if you go down to the Lululemon dropdown and you go to the very bottom, it also says activity. So I can now search Lululemon's product catalog based off of, do I want to do tennis? Do I want to just go travel? And so I can easily see myself in their products so much quicker than sort of like, is this the best legging out there? And so you don't have to get into this feature battle with your competitors. You can think about how to specialize. And I think Obvi does this so well. Like collagen is the underlier. Like I know I'm going to get collagen. And then you've done it based on my goals. And I think that's such a smart way to think about product positioning.
No, it's a great point. The Lululemon example, even greater. I mean, it's like some of these things are, again, seem intuitive enough for us to all, oh yeah, that seems obvious. But even at the core of how we build our brand, sometimes it's like, it's so much still just very like, how am I going to sell this product? And you're not really thinking about it as a whole or the ecosystem. And part of it, I think, is to blame is, I think some of it is this launch culture, which is like, I'm launching a new product. I'm launching a new product. And the hype around launching, you kind of forget that the post-launch, the ecosystem still needs to welcome this product in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So much, and this is where we also failed. And I know a lot of brands do this. It's like they'll launch something and it's like, okay, it's launched. We've made whatever money we thought we were going to make from retention. And then it kind of just like, yeah, it sits on the website. But like there's no other element of integration from other parts. And it's super important.
Yeah, it's really, really important. Yeah. So let's talk about subscriptions. We've talked around it, but I do think that our goal with the Tomorrow brand campaign is to really let it have its day in the sun.
Yeah.
Subscriptions, again, are very, very important for your business, and they're important for your consumers. So how can we make sure that we give it its day and really think about that? And so the brands that we're really thinking about that are maybe new to subscriptions, I think the number one thing we're seeing is just put it everywhere. Like optimize every piece of real estate you have around it. I think the brands that are doing very well have a subscribe and save at the top of their nav. They have it on the PDP, on the product page. They have it in the portal. Like they have it everywhere so that you are constantly showing the promise of this. Now, I think Array is such a great product. I love Array.
Yeah. Great founders too.
Oh, we're such a huge fan of Array. But the way that they do it, if you go to their product page, like it shows what you get. Like you get L-glutamine with every new subscription, and then it automatically opts you to a 3-month, but then it allows you to go to a 2-month or a 1-month. And then there's also a button that says, why subscribe? Like, let's just make it obvious. Like, why subscribe? And they give, surprise perks and gifts for subscription. And so if you're thinking about how to kind of get started in this, optimize every piece of real estate you can around subscription.
Yeah, even your cart. I mean, we have a toggle right in the cart built in, which is like subscribe and save an extra 15%, and it'll automatically change all your products that aren't on subscription to subscription. Because it's like the whole point of being everywhere is because you want everyone to think about how it's going to fit into routine, which is going back to our initial points, is like if you can't remind them that this is a routine product, then naturally, yes, you're still going to get that 30 to 40% a bucket of retention that'll come back and buy, but you're going to naturally lose maybe 60 to 70% of that customer. So it's like work hard for that 60 to 70% because you worked your ass off to acquire that customer.
Yeah.
I think it's being everywhere and being omnipresent around it. It's like so necessary.
And Recharge just released a feature to optimize the checkout around subscriptions now too. So we're just trying to figure out like how everywhere you're going to talk about subscriptions, like how do we make that really dynamic and really interesting? Now for brands that are bought into subscriptions, like how do you go further with your subscription program? So I think this piece is really exciting, and where Recharge's product roadmap has gone is like, okay, you're sitting here with like 40,000 subscribers, and now what? Like, what do you now do with them? And so our first foray into that was retention. Like, how do you make sure that you keep those subscribers? How do you make sure you optimize your retention strategy around failed payment recovery and cancellation prevention? I think something we're seeing with cancellation prevention is we wanted to make this very testable.
Yeah.
So like Tej Hanley, for example, like they're seeing a 44% reduction in churn off of our cancellation prevention. And we wanted to give these options of like, okay, go to cancel, pick a reason, intercept them with an offer. Now, Lola, shout out Kelly, she found actually they tried that, and they also tried a blanket 20%. The blanket 20% converted better.
Wow.
And they were like, we're just going to do that. We're like, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Like that's how we built these products. We're like, how do you make sure that you are trying something, personalizing, and then creating very tight testing environments so that you can then make that push it to your broader audience. So that's kind of been what I would say is just test everything and build in personalization.
One just added point to that is like when you're thinking of the messaging across when somebody is typically due to churn, I think that messaging is probably the most valuable piece of messaging to work on. It's like we all focus on very much like the, hey, from 1 month to 2 months, maybe I'll give you a gift, or 2 months to 3 months, maybe I'll give you more reward points, or whatever it may be. It's like that, where the arbitrary point is, but like that 3 to 4 month for us, right? It's like we have to go deep there because usually after 90 days, if you haven't lost the weight you wanted to, you're probably moving on to another thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And if you have lost the weight, you're probably still moving on to another thing because the goal's done. But now it's like, how do you maintain and say like, well, we've also seen that people who stay on the burn for another 6 months, they continue to, lose stubborn belly fat, right? And like our messaging had to completely shift from even the first reason why they bought. Because the truth is, the first reason why they bought and the fourth reason why they stayed on are totally different.
I just took my first solid core class out here in New York.
I've been hearing about that a lot.
Oh, Ron.
I'm not going, but I've just been hearing it.
Like if you want me to drag Ron to our first software class. It kicked my ass. God, it was so hard. But I was leaving, and on their board, they had a rewards program. Like, finish 3 classes, get this. Finish 5 classes, get this. Finish 22 classes, get this. And I think this is a great area for brands to really double down on, is what is your reward strategy? And again, what we have found from all of these different brands is that it's very different. It's very different from like a feminine hygiene category to a skincare category. And so the way that we're thinking about rewards is like, we want to make sure that that's really dynamic. Yeah. That you can do punch card, right? That based on how much you purchase. You can do milestone, like reach this, get this, like solid core. You can do cash back. You can do credits. And so really think about what you're trying to drive with a rewards program. Yeah. Is it retention? Is it community? Is it specific order drop off? And then build your reward strategy to address those points.
When it comes to rewards for us, it's been one of those things where it's like, when we first started, it was like, we just have to have rewards. And I don't think we thought through the why. It was like, okay, give rewards because we want people to stay on. And it was very like transactional driven versus now, I think what we've thought through is like, what would someone who stays on want to be rewarded with, right? I have this, as you can tell, bad eating habits. I have this favorite ice cream shop, and it's called Ice Cream on the Grand. And what they reward you with is during the summertime, if you come to them every 3 times you go, you get to actually taste one of their new flavors that are being still worked on, like R&D, and you get to give like feedback. So I've been there 3 times, and I got to do it. And they were doing a maple walnut flavor, and it was amazing because first of all, it's not available to anyone. 2, it's not even released. I got to taste it, right? And you think about it, I was like, that was a cool reward. Like, I didn't want $2 off my next ice cream, right? And so like the way we repositioned our rewards was like, if you're buying a pill product from us, our reward after staying on 3 times is we're gonna give you a travel pill case with Monday through Sunday written on it. So that like now you're in a routine, you're probably traveling with it, and instead of taking a bottle, take this. So and smart. Like people, it worked really well. So it's like, don't just do rewards because everyone does rewards and it's just what you have to do, but really put yourself in the shoes of like, what would this person want after they stayed on so much and truly likes your product? They probably want something a little bit more thoughtful.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So one other thing that we talk about with subscription success is like defining, like first you got to define what your metrics for success are with the subscription program. It can't just be like, we want to do subscriptions.
Yeah.
And I will say, I think seeing you speak, there are few founders as thoughtful as you around your business. I think you were so incredibly thoughtful. We got to tour the office, and just like the amount of like things written on boards and walls and windows everywhere is wild. Like Ron is so thoughtful about the business. So I'm kind of curious, when you think about your subscription program, what are sort of like the top 3 KPIs you look at?
No, well, thank you for those comments. It's interesting. It's like, the KPIs you should be focused on, which is like, what is the opt-in rate? And then obviously what is the LTV you're getting? And then like, what is the churn rate at? And it's like, that typically comprises of a good evaluation on a subscription program, right? I think we took it a couple of steps further because what we were doing before is like, we're looking at subscription as a whole, not by product, which sounds kind of like, oh no, duh, like why would you do that? But like, I think a lot of people still look at their subscription program as a whole instead of their subscription per product, and understanding what SKUs are doing what and where they're failing. Like, we didn't realize when we were looking at it as a whole, like our gummy product has a crazy strong subscription. But because our overall subscription is like a little bit dismal, kind of like, oh, our subscription program's not strong. And so like really go and break down, and any product you have on a subscription, actually understand what is that true churn rate and true KPI by product, number 1. And then number 2 is like, when you look at churn, I think the one piece that we started to do, which was really helpful, is that KPI of churn is like so painful for everyone to look at. What we did was we rewarded people to tell us their story about why they churned, where we'd be like, hey, we wanted to give you a $25 gift card to shop our merch. Like, we know they don't want any of our products anymore. So like, shop our merch. We'll give you $25 if you let us know why
smart
you churned. And like, what we really understood was so much of it was the product only deemed necessary for X amount of time. And sometimes I think it's also okay to know that. Like, if a fat burner cannot get more than 3 months, then like, I don't want to spend all my time trying to get the 4th month, you know? And I think really recognizing and understanding it is so important.
Oh, it's so smart, because I think a lot of people would see that 3rd order drop off and like fucking panic.
Yeah.
But I think for you were like, no, this is normal, and this is within our margin of acceptance for this specific product. Whereas gummies, you know, you want to get on that.
Right. If tomorrow I saw a sharp decline in gummies, I'm probably gonna panic. But like, I think we need to also, as much as we pay to acquire the customer, we need to pay to understand why they're no longer with the brand. And I think that like that needs to probably be something that I think we're going to have to do it eventually, because people are going to run out of answers. But I think we should all start doing that, because you can't pay $60 to $70 to acquire a customer, but then spend no money on trying to understand why they're gone from you.
100%.
So Jen, I know we covered a lot today and a lot of different topics and a lot of different great takeaways, but for those brand founders and operators and listeners and viewers, if there's one thing to take away to become a tomorrow brand, what is that one piece of advice or takeaway that you'd like to give them?
Really think about the routine that you're powering, and make sure that is in your subscription program, your life cycle marketing. Think about how your product is used and how you're talking about that brand promise throughout the entire life cycle of one of your customers.
So the moment you've all been waiting for, what we talked about in the beginning of the episode, we have a special surprise for you. Jen and the Recharge team put together something spectacular, historical, shocking, and quite frankly, I still can't believe they're going to announce it right now. So Jen, what is this special announcement?
Okay, so we are launching the Tomorrow Brand Challenge. Like we've said before, we want to give subscriptions their day in the sun, and we understand that priorities are hard. Like Ron's list of things that he's got to do as an operator. So we want to make sure that we are giving enough incentive to drive this behavior. And so we're giving away almost $1 million in prizes.
Insanity.
We'll have 3 winners from different categories of stage. And then we're giving away $100,000, a team retreat. Like we want to get your whole company excited about this. We're giving you a team retreat, and we're giving you $50,000 to fund your next big marketing bet. So I think this is so fun. Like if you ever wanted to do a billboard but didn't want to spend your own money on it, or you wanted to do a commercial, we want to give you $50K to be a little bit crazy. Try something new, try something big. And then we're also giving away 2 tickets to each of the winners to the big race in Monza, Italy next year. That will be our Recharge brand trip. And due to legal reasons, I can't say what the big race is, but everyone can kind of, right? We all know.
Yeah.
We all know what the big race is in Monza, Italy. But that's the prize. Again, 3 winners in the startup, challenger, and champion category. This, again, is the largest prize in e-commerce history. Our core belief, we believe in subscriptions. That is what we believe in. We believe that subscriptions are good for your consumers. They're good for your business. And we want to make sure that you get the time and resources to do that, to innovate on your subscription strategy. So we went big on our prizes, and it's all based around subscriber growth. So a couple logistics here to talk about that. So right now is the opt-in period. From now through the end of the year, you opt into this brand challenge. Based on your processing, we'll put you in your category. And then the competition actually starts January 1. January 1 through the end of June, we'll look at month-over-month subscriber growth. And then the winners will emerge from those categories. And then we'll announce the winners probably July.